When the sirens blared behind Marcus Young's old, rickety sedan, he felt a familiar knot tighten in his stomach. It wasn't just the fear of another unwarranted ticket or a night wasted in a cell that made his heart beat against his ribs. It was the deep, aching knowledge of the countless stories just like his. Officer Dan Hartwell's stern face appeared in Marcus's rearview mirror, his expression unreadable as the evening sun dipped low behind him, casting long shadows across the asphalt. Marcus, a 34-year-old black man and a highly respected FBI agent, often faced scrutiny not befitting his badge and credentials, especially in his own neighborhood. On the other hand, Officer Hartwell was known in the community for his rigid, often harsh, interpretation of law and order, which frequently brought him into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. The scene was set, a quiet street now lined with the curious faces of onlookers peering from their windows, the air thick with tension. As Hartwell approached the driver's side, his hand resting conspicuously on his belt, Marcus rolled down his window, his own hands deliberately visible on the steering wheel. "License and registration," Hartwell demanded, his voice betraying a hint of anticipated authority. Marcus complied silently, handing over not just his driver's license, but also his FBI badge. The moment the badge surfaced, the dynamics shifted palpably. Hartwell's eyes flickered with a mix of surprise and reluctance. "Agent Young, I wasn't aware you lived in this area," Hartwell stammered, his earlier confidence waning as he scanned the badge and ID. "What seems to be the issue, officer?" Marcus's tone was calm, but firm, maintaining eye contact in a way that challenged Hartwell's initial demeanor. The officer mumbled something about a broken tail light, a minor issue that certainly didn't warrant the drama of the flashing lights and sirens. As they spoke, the neighborhood's quiet murmurs grew into a small crowd, drawn by the spectacle of the interaction. Marcus, acutely aware of his role not just as an FBI agent but as a pillar in the community, decided this was a teachable moment. "Officer, do you believe this stop was truly necessary?" he asked, his voice loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. "Given the circumstances, don't you think we could handle these situations a bit differently?" Hartwell, now fully aware of his audience and the turned tables, took a moment before nodding. "You're right, Agent Young. Perhaps a more, measured approach would be appropriate." The onlookers whispered among themselves, their eyes shifting from Marcus to Hartwell, witnessing an unusual accountability. The resolution came quietly as Hartwell handed back the documents and mumbled an apology before walking back to his patrol car. Marcus turned towards the crowd, giving them a slight, reassuring nod. The incident, while minor, sparked conversations throughout the community, highlighting the power of dignity and the importance of mutual respect under the law. As Marcus drove away, the weight of the encounter stayed with him. He knew that this wouldn't be the last time he would have to assert his humanity in the face of prejudice. Yet, he felt hopeful, thinking perhaps this small victory was a step toward greater understanding and change. This moment, a blend of confrontation and resolution, underscored a simple yet profound lesson. Respect, coupled with authority, can indeed foster change and bridge the deepest divides. The echo of the evening's encounter lingered in the neighborhood long after Marcus had driven away. In the days that followed, the buzz of conversations filled the local cafes and street corners, where the residents of this tight-knit community gathered to discuss the significance of what they had witnessed. The local barber shop became a particularly fervent hub of dialogue, with patrons animatedly discussing the need for police reform and greater understanding between law enforcement and communities of color. Marcus, meanwhile, had not been idle. Inspired by the engagement of his neighbors, he began organizing community forums, inviting local law enforcement officers to participate in open dialogues with the residents. The forums took place in the community center, a modest building with walls adorned with posters of historical figures and community heroes. These discussions were honest, sometimes uncomfortable, but always constructive, aiming to bridge the gap through understanding and transparency. As the forums gained momentum, Officer Hartwell found himself attending one. The atmosphere was apprehensive at first, with attendees whispering, "Isn't that the officer from the other night?" Their voices were tinged with a mix of curiosity and wariness. Hartwell took a seat in the back, listening as community members shared their stories and expressed their fears and hopes for the future. Halfway through the session, Marcus invited Hartwell to join him at the front. With all eyes fixed on him, Hartwell stood, his posture stiff but his voice clear. "I've been part of this community as a cop for over 15 years, and I thought I knew what it meant to serve. The other night, standing outside Marcus's car, I realized there's a lot I've been blind to." The room fell silent, the weight of his admission hanging in the air. Encouraged by Hartwell's openness, others began to share their experiences, each story weaving a richer tapestry of the community's life and challenges. Marcus facilitated the conversation with a gentle firmness, guiding it towards constructive outcomes rather than lingering resentments. These forums became a regular occurrence, growing in attendance and impact. Relationships between the police and the community members slowly began to change. Officers who had once patrolled the neighborhood with a sense of detachment now walked the streets engaging with residents, their interactions marked by newfound respect and understanding. The change wasn't overnight, and it wasn't without its setbacks, but the effort made a tangible difference. The community started to feel like a place where law enforcement was not just a presence to be feared, but a reliable resource, and even a source of support. Marcus watched this transformation with a sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that his actions had ignited a small but significant spark of change. Months had passed since the first community forum, and the impact of those gatherings began to manifest in more significant ways. One particularly warm afternoon, the local park buzzed with the excitement of the annual Community Day, a festival filled with music, games, and laughter. For the first time, local police officers were not just on duty, but actively participating, manning booths, playing basketball with the youth, and even grilling burgers. The atmosphere was one of celebration and camaraderie, a stark contrast to the cautious, tentative interactions of previous years. Marcus, walking through the crowd with a smile, noticed a young boy hesitating at the edge of a group playing soccer. With an encouraging nod, he gestured for the boy to join in. The boy looked up, scanning the faces of the officers in the game, then back at Marcus. Seeing the genuine smiles and open gestures, the boy's hesitation melted away as he ran to join the game. It was a small moment, but for Marcus, it symbolized the leaps of trust and progress the community had made. Later that day, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, a moment of reflection took the crowd by surprise. Officer Hartwell took the stage, a place usually reserved for local artists and speakers. He cleared his throat, the microphone amplifying his nervousness. "I used to think my job was about maintaining order, about following rules and making sure others did the same," he started, his eyes scanning the crowd, "but I've come to realize that it's about people. It's about making sure we all feel safe, respected, and part of this community." The crowd listened, rapt, as Hartwell shared his journey of understanding and growth. He talked about the forums, the conversations, and, most importantly, the listening he'd done. "It's not easy to change," he admitted, "but it's necessary. And it's worth it. Because all of you have shown me that beyond the badge and uniform, there's community, there's unity, and there's hope." The applause that followed was heartfelt and loud, echoing off the surrounding buildings. Marcus felt a swell of pride, not just for Hartwell, but for every single person there. As the applause died down, a local pastor took the microphone, his voice rich and warm. "Let's take this moment to acknowledge the progress we've made, the bridges we've built. It's only the beginning, yes, but what a beautiful beginning it is." As the event drew to a close, people lingered, not wanting to leave the bubble of community and shared joy they had created. Marcus stayed until the end, helping to clean up, his heart full. The night ended with promises to keep the momentum going, to continue the conversations, and to never forget the power of open, honest dialogue. Driving home, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but the community had laid a strong foundation of respect and understanding. It was a testament to what could be achieved when people come together, willing to learn, to change, and to grow together. This was the legacy he hoped to leave behind, a community forever changed, forever stronger. As the seasons changed, the seeds of change that had been planted during the Community Day continued to grow. The forums that had started as a series of cautious dialogues were now vibrant gatherings, eagerly anticipated by both the community and the police. Officer Hartwell, who had once been a symbol of division, was now a frequent speaker, sharing his journey with other departments and becoming an advocate for community policing. One crisp fall evening, the community center hosted a special forum focused on youth and law enforcement relationships. High school students from the local area were invited to speak their minds, to share their fears, and to ask hard questions. The panel included police officers, community leaders, and Marcus, who had become a mentor to many of the youths. A teenage girl, her voice shaky with nerves, stood up to speak. "How can we trust the police when all we see are negative things on the news?" she asked, her eyes scanning the panel. It was a tough question, one that silenced the room. Marcus nodded respectfully to her, acknowledging the weight of her words. Officer Hartwell responded with a gentle honesty that had come to characterize his interactions. "That's a fair question. All I can say is, look around this room. These forums, this dialogue, this is us trying to show you that we are here for you, not against you." The discussion that followed was intense but respectful. Ideas flowed, from joint community projects to internship opportunities with the police department. The energy was positive, forward-thinking, and filled with potential. As the forum closed, the students gathered around the officers, talking, laughing, and even taking selfies. It was a new sight, one that filled Marcus with hope. In the weeks that followed, the community saw real, tangible improvements. The local police started a mentorship program, pairing officers with young people interested in law enforcement careers. Community patrols were no longer just about policing but about engagement, with officers stopping to play basketball or to chat with residents. The annual end-of-year celebration was the highlight of these efforts. The event was bigger than ever, with families and officers working side by side to set up booths and decorations. The atmosphere was festive, a true celebration of unity and progress. As Marcus walked through the crowd, a young boy tugged at his sleeve, looking up at him with wide, admiring eyes. "Are you the FBI man who started all this?" he asked, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and curiosity. "Yes, I suppose I am," Marcus replied, kneeling to be eye level with the boy. "But it's everyone here who keeps it going. You included. Maybe one day you'll be the one leading the charge." The boy nodded, his eyes bright with possibilities. "I will," he said confidently, a promise to the future. As fireworks painted the night sky, Marcus stood back, his heart full. The journey had been long, and at times daunting, but the community had transformed. Trust had been built, not just in their leaders, but in each other. This was the power of unity, of persistent, heartfelt effort to understand and respect one another. As the crowd cheered and clapped, Marcus knew this was more than a celebration. It was a declaration of a new beginning, a new way of living together, in peace and mutual respect. The road ahead was still long, but for the first time, it was one they would travel together, as a true community. The ripple effects of the community's transformation extended far beyond the holiday celebrations and public forums. As the new year dawned, schools in the area began to report higher attendance and participation rates, particularly in programs that involved community service and law enforcement collaboration. Teachers noticed a marked improvement in student engagement, attributing it to the renewed sense of safety and belonging that had enveloped the neighborhood. In the spring, the community center launched a new initiative called Voices of Tomorrow, a series of workshops led by Marcus and other community leaders aimed at empowering local youths. These workshops focused on leadership, civil rights, and civic responsibility, and they quickly became a cornerstone of the community's weekly activities. The center was vibrant with the energy of young people eager to learn and grow, a testament to the enduring impact of the dialogue that had begun in those initial forums. Marcus, reflecting on the progress made, decided to document the journey. He began working on a book, intending to share the story of his community's transformation with a broader audience. The narrative was compelling, filled with personal anecdotes, challenges overcome, and, most importantly, the lessons learned about the power of empathy and engagement. He hoped his book would serve as a blueprint for other communities facing similar divides. Meanwhile, the local police department, inspired by the success of their engagement efforts, hosted the first of what would become an annual conference on community policing. Officers from departments across the state were invited to attend, and Officer Hartwell was one of the key speakers. He shared the stage with Marcus in a powerful session that detailed their personal and professional growth. "It's about changing the narrative," Hartwell explained, his voice resonant with conviction. "It's about showing that change is possible when we choose to see the humanity in each other." The conference concluded with the announcement of a new scholarship program for youths in the community who wished to pursue careers in law enforcement. The scholarship was named in honor of the community's efforts, a symbol of the ongoing commitment to nurturing the bond between the police and the public. As summer approached, the community celebrated the first graduates of the Voices of Tomorrow program. The ceremony was held in the local park, with family, friends, and community leaders in attendance. Each graduate had the chance to speak, sharing their dreams and the ways in which the program had shaped their paths. Their words were full of hope and determination, qualities that had come to define the new generation. Marcus watched from the sidelines, his heart swelling with pride. He realized that the true measure of their success wasn't in the events they had held or the programs they had started, but in the eyes of these young people, who looked to the future not with fear, but with the courage to shape it. This was the real victory, the real transformation. As the celebration wound down, the community gathered for a group photo. Everyone squeezed in, their faces beaming, a mosaic of the progress and unity they had achieved. Marcus stood at the center, a reminder of where it all began. The camera captured that moment, a snapshot of triumph and togetherness that would inspire generations to come. In that picture lay not just the memory of what they had accomplished, but the promise of what was still to come. It was a testament to the fact that when communities come together, driven by understanding and respect, they can overcome even the most entrenched divides. It was a message of hope, a message that Marcus knew would resonate far beyond the borders of his beloved neighborhood.